Hey everybody, it's Chris Gallagher. Welcome to our Preacher's Pen Weekly Bible class. We're on our last day this week. This is Friday. This is Good Friday. And a lot of people are digging into the scriptures this week, and we so much appreciate you being able to do that. If you have an opportunity, check us out at our website at preacherspen.org. We would be glad that you would check us out, see what information is there. We're going to be redesigning that website here within the next few days, probably a few weeks. We've been doing some background information to that, kind of getting some things ready in the background that we can push forward. But hopefully this will bring you more efficiency and a lot of different things all combined together. But we're glad that you're here, that you're with us today, as we're going to sum up Mark chapter 4. We've studied Mark chapter 4 this week, and Mark chapter 4 is one of those chapters that we know because of a couple parables, and they're all contained in Mark 4. If you go back to the very beginning of Mark chapter 4, go all the way down through about verse 9, you're going to find the parable of the sower. Right after that, Jesus explains his use of parables, because it really wasn't a new way of teaching per se, but he talked a lot in parables. Remember, parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning, but Jesus is sharing with them a spiritual truth in an earthly way. So not everybody is able to understand what the disciples, those student learners, or what the apostles know about what Jesus is saying, because they're walking with him all the time. There are other people who are coming to him in the multitudes. They're following him as what I like to kind of think of as the outer circle. They're still in the circle, but they're on the outsides of it. They're the multitudes. And they're following Jesus, just trying to do better and to hear his teaching. So he speaks to them in parables. A little bit later in verse 21, you'll find out a very familiar passage. We typically think about it from Matthew chapter 5, but it has to do with the lamp under the basket. He goes on down, he talks about the seed that grows. Then he talks about the parable of the mustard seed. So you have all these teachings that we are familiar with. You have those occurring all together here in Mark chapter 4. It creates for us a very interesting chapter that we can dig in and that we can study. Now, today we're going to sum up Mark chapter 4 with the very last account, the last story. Now, I typically don't use the word story because a lot of people, when you think of story, they think of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. But we know that this is real. This is not a Goldilocks and the Three Bears moment. But these are historical accounts of Jesus and what he was able to do. Now, at the end of Mark chapter 4 is another very familiar passage to us. And it shows us the power that Jesus has. I think that when we think of Jesus and his power, we think of several different events. We think of all the healings that Jesus went through. I think we consider Jesus walking on the water. We talk about his resurrection. I think that was more of God's power in Jesus' life than it just was, if you will, Jesus' power, because God raised him from the dead. But that's a whole different ballgame that we're not going to get into today. And the other one is Jesus calming the storm. When the storm was about him and the winds were blowing, the disciples got pretty scared. And they go to Jesus and they talk to Jesus and he calms the storm. Well, that's the passage that we're going to look at today in Mark chapter 4 and verse 35. So if you want to turn over there in Mark chapter 4 and verse 35, it says this: "And on that day when evening had come," that's the day after teaching these parables, after teaching the parable of the mustard seed or the seed that grows, it says, after that day when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go over to the other side." Now remember, he is over on the Sea of Galilee, and he's encouraging them. He says, let's go to the other side. Jesus, at least 12 times in the scriptures, withdrew himself. It means he goes away. He needs a rest, probably needs to refresh. But he tells the disciples, let's go to the other side. It says, "And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was, and the other boats that were with him." So there's a series of boats that's going to go over across the Sea of Galilee. But it says that a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, and the boat was already filling. The waves on the Sea of Galilee, they say, could get at least 3 feet tall. So that boat's rocking, going up and down, and it's getting hit by waves. As if you've ever been on the boat and you've ever hit a windstorm, the winds kind of swirl around you. They may come in a certain way, and it rocks the boat, and you try to get your bearings straight, but it tilts and it turns and it twists you around, and water can get in the boat. And we find out that the boat is starting to fill up with water. But Jesus was in the stern asleep. Imagine the exhaustion that Jesus must have had. The literal and powerful exhaustion that Jesus had from teaching all of these parables and from being around all of these people. He's exhausted, and he says, excuse me, sorry about that. It says he was sleeping on a cushion. They awoke him and they said, "Teacher, don't you care that we're perishing?" Well, of course he cares about them, but he was sound asleep. You ever been woken up from your sound asleep because somebody else has something going on and you think, what just happened? You know, that's where Jesus is. He's sound asleep. He is gone. He's out. And he says, "Teacher, don't you care?" As if to say, hey, you woke up and went back to sleep. But Jesus awoke and he rebuked the wind, saying, "Peace, be still." And when the wind ceased, there was a great calm. So just picture this. Jesus sound asleep. They wake him up. When they wake him up, he immediately just tells the wind and everything, "Peace, be still." That's exactly what he tells them. And it stops. But remember why they went to him. Don't you care that we're perishing? The boat's filling up with water. But Jesus is sound asleep. He just wants some rest. So he says, "Peace, be still." The wind stopped. There was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid?" He could see it in their eyes. Now, this windstorm, as I have been told, can happen on the Sea of Galilee. You can be going around and everything will look perfectly fine. Then all of a sudden, the wind just pops up and you have this great windstorm that's there. And Jesus is in the middle of this windstorm with his disciples, but he's sleeping. They're panicking. He wakes up. He probably sees the fear on their face, and he asks them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" He's asking them about their beliefs. He's Jesus, right? Jesus is going to take care of them. Nothing's going to happen to Jesus because it's not his time yet. His time is going to come with the crucifixion. But he tells them, aren't you just a little bit too scared? Have you no faith? It's going to be okay. Now, to that, I don't know what happens after. I don't know if Jesus went back to sleep. I don't know what happens. But I know the words that were said in verse 41. It says, "And they were filled with great fear, great awe, and they said to one another, Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obeys him?" Now to us, we get a weird perspective on this because we think to ourselves, they know who Jesus is. They've been with Jesus. They've seen his healings. They've heard all the words that he's going to speak. Even in Mark, if you go back with the great crowds following Jesus in Matthew chapter 3, right before that, Jesus heals a man of a withered hand. Jesus has been asked about fasting. Jesus has healed a paralytic in Mark chapter 2. He's cleansed the leper in Mark chapter 1. He's healed many different people in Mark chapter 1. So all these healings are taking place, but they're still amazed when they say, even the winds and the sea obey him. Do you know why? They've never seen anybody like him. And it amazed them every day that they were with him about what was able to happen. I think we can say the same thing about our life. We can be amazed every single day by Jesus if we'll think about who he is, if we'll put what he said into our life. You know, this parable of the sower, are you good soil where that seed's going to take root? Is that who you are? Are you the growing seed, knowing that the seed's been planted and it's starting to grow and it's going to get bigger? Have you hidden your lamp under a basket? See, we have all of these books to read and to study and to learn from so that every day we can see Jesus. You know, it's my prayer that you're seeing Jesus every day. It's my prayer that not only you're seeing Jesus, but you are experiencing life through Jesus. If there's anything that we can help you out, I appreciate you being with us in our study of Mark chapter 4. But if there's anything that we can do to help you, please reach out to us. Check us out at preacherspen.org. We would love to have you as a part of our email list. Go ahead and sign up, be part of that. And as always, be blessed. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.